When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Good morning, world. How are we? Ready for another faultless, professionally performed episode of Join Up Dots? I'm sure you are. I've got a guest on today, but I said I wouldn't say this to him, but last time I was ready to record, he didn't turn up. He actually overslept. So I've screwed him up live. And do you know what was worse? He said to me on that day that he overslept because he'd set his alarm for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Whoever sets an alarm for 4 o'clock in the afternoon? You should be up and about. Is this the laziest person you've ever met? Well, we're going to find out in the show. Because he is a man who hasn't just got an unusual name, but he has a fascinating tale of how he has reached a place in his life where he seems totally at ease and loving every day. Growing up in a tiny little town called 7 Points in East Texas for the first few years of his adult life, he hadn't got into first gear. Studying graphic design at college, he didn't set the world alight. In fact, I'm sure the only thing that he considered setting alight was the college. It didn't suit him, and he hated every minute. But he did what he had to do and graduated before getting a job quickly in an advertising agency in Dallas. And looking back, I'm assuming he hated college as in many ways it suppressed his free spirit, his desire to do things his own way, his need to be creative on his own terms. So fast forward to the evenings, and like Bruce Wayne and his alter ego, The Dark Knight, our guest slipped effortlessly into his other role, that of guitar-strucking rock god. Yes, he worked hard with his band, toured nationally, playing festivals, getting on the radio and sharing stage space with some of the biggest bands of the day. And then it came to an end. His music career was no more. So what do you do when everything you've worked for comes to an end? Where do you go when you're at a crossroads in your life and the dots that have led you to this point stop and you're left with just your own vision of what life will be? Well, let's find out as we bring on to the show to start joining up dots, the one and only AJ Amyx. How are you, AJ?
Yo, brother, thanks for having me. I swear, you're the funniest freaking man in podcasting. I'm like, you're freaking hilarious.
It is amazing, actually, that, it's, I don't know what time it is out there, but I imagine you've just got out of bed. You're in your pajamas. What is happening in your life? Because how did that happen that you set your alarm for 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Man, I felt like the biggest, dumbest person I think that's ever walked the face of the planet. Like, I don't know. I set my alarm. And I knew, to get on your show, I had to be up at 4 a.m. And I stayed up the night before till midnight. I don't even remember why, but I had to for some god-awful reason. And so I'm like, okay. So I went in, put the phone, and I set it to what I thought was 4 a.m. But apparently on my iPhone, I did not move it to AM. Apparently it automatically was set to PM. And I woke up like in a cold sweat. And it was like, it's dark. And I looked at it and I'm like, rubbed my eyes. I'm like, what time is it? I'm oversleep. And it's 6 a.m. And I'm like, no. And I knew I had to be on with you at 5:30 a.m. So it's 30 minutes later. And I'm panicking. And I'm picking up my phone. And I'm like texting you via Skype. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. And you're like, it's okay. And now here you are making fun of me publicly. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I was just quite chilled. If you had screwed John Lee Dumas over, he would have had you. He is a military man who would have come for you with probably a bit of armoury and a tank or two. But I just let it go because that's what us UK guys do. We just let things go.
Man, I'm so glad. I'm glad you didn't behead me. I mean, I appreciate that.
So what is your image of English people? Because I'm quite fascinated. So many of the guests always mention the accent that I've got, and then they ask me off air some bizarre questions about what it's like in the UK. And some of them I kind of think, really? Is that what you actually think? One of them I had the other day was, is it always raining? And I thought, well, no, it's not. Do I wear a bowler hat? So did you have sort of similar sort of stereotypes of what it's like being in the United Kingdom?
I just, when I think of David Ralph, I think of this man with red hair, yellow teeth, hairy chest, rubbing his nipples, screaming, "Yeah, baby!" That's what I think.
I think the nipples is right.
I'm totally kidding, dude. Here's the deal. I was in your
I like rubbing
world.
other people's nipples.
I was in your world. It's been a long time. It was in 1996, and I was playing soccer on this club team, and I was there for 2 weeks. And I think it rained once when we were there. So what I see like of like London or UK, I just think of normal people playing soccer, gorgeous rolling fields, green grass, real laid back, unless you're in London. And if people say, hey, it's right around the block, that means it's probably around a 4-mile walk. And taxi drivers who throw you in the back of those black cars, and they drive, semi-fast in London. That's kind of, what I think of London. I just think of really cool, nice people, soccer and some good football, and green fields and sheep.
The semi-fast taxi, I think that's a rule to learn. If you are on any road and you see the fastest car go past you like a blur, I guarantee it will be an empty taxi. And if you see the slowest car go past you, it's a taxi with a passenger in. And I think across the world, that is it. I see blurs go past me. I don't even have to look now. I think, it's an empty taxi.
Yeah, unless it's Superman. I mean, he's faster than a speeding bullet, faster than a locomotive. So, it may not be a taxi driver. It could be Superman.
I think you're high on drugs. I think you are. So what was life for you? Because I am going to sort of delve back into your history, but what was life in 7 Points in East Texas? Because how tiny is a little town?
So, dude, I still live in 7 Points, and so the population is a little over 900. I think it's like 926 or something like that. I mean, it's super small. And I know growing up, maybe it's like 1,256 now, something like that. But growing up, there was like 700 and something. So we made progress. We increased the population over time. And but the surrounding communities, because we live on a lake, this area is kind of called Cedar Creek Lake, and so the surrounding communities, they pull together for maybe a population of 10 or 15, maybe 20,000 people. So it's just really small, man. And here in 7 Points, like the only things, there's one stoplight, there's gas stations, there's a fried chicken place, and the rest of them are either liquor stores or bars. That's pretty much it. And then if you go across the lake into Gun Barrel City, which is a great name for a little city in Texas, that's where more of the shopping and more of the eateries and the diners are. And then if you head over to Maybank, that's where more of like the schools, and that's where I went to school at and so forth. So it's just kind of like this meshed, really small meshed community, very small town, very laid back, very quiet.
And do they know you from your online presence? Because you are somebody, and we're going to touch on what you're doing now, and then we're going to work back on it. So I don't think in the introduction I really gave a flavour of what you're doing now. But in 7 Points, are you the kind of online guy? Are you I saw AJ on the web?
They know me from Facebook, but they have no clue what I do. Like, and to try to explain it to them, it would just be like, it just go over their heads. So all you just have to say is, I'm a consultant, and they're like, okay, that's good, and just leave it at that. Like they have no clue, they have no concept, and they're I saw your video on Facebook, it was really inspiring, or you're such a great motivational speaker, you should come speak to the kids. Like that's all they know about what I do.
Because I have started saying to people I'm an online chat show host, because I realized when I was saying I'm a podcaster, they had no idea. And they would just look at me blankly. But now I say to them, I'm an online chat show host. And they go, really? That's so interesting. So it's funny in the online world how there is so much opportunity to create income, create vast income in many ways. But for many people who are not involved in that environment, it's still an unknown quantity, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like most people can't even conceive. They're just like, wait, you use an internet to talk with people and serve as clients? How do you do that? I'm like, hey, it's pretty easy. I mean, we just use GoToMeeting, and I have a webcam, they have a webcam, so it's just like kind of like we're having coffee. Oh, I could never do that. I mean, I need to have human interaction. And I'm like, oh, I have human interaction. We talk, we email, we're on these type of masterminds, and we meet up, once a quarter. That's weird. I don't. How do you get clients again? And you're like, oh, they read content, or they connect with you on a podcast, or they hear you here, and then they, curious about what you do, and you have this thing that you help them. I don't understand. Why don't you go get like a real job? And I'm like, a real job, like one hour I would make less income as a teacher than I do currently. Nah, I'm good. I really enjoy my geographical freedom and the ability to actually make more money than I would with a full-time job.
So is it a job? No, I'm going to ask you the question. What is your job then? Let's frame it for the audience listening in so they can know exactly what we're talking about.
Dude, at the end of the day, it's being a consultant, which is helping guide somebody to launching a product or launching a coaching program or some type of brand in 90 days. I like working in 90-day increments. So we set a goal, we set a monetary goal, and then I help them create the strategy to pull that off. And if we have to build something, either I build it or somebody on my team builds the infrastructure. It teaches them how to build what it takes to build their business.
So somebody is online and they are online to the ability of they search on Google and they do their banking and they do the kind of look for what's on at the movies, that kind of stuff. And they're listening to our conversations on a daily basis and they get this idea. They get this idea of a business, but it's only an idea to them because they don't understand the practicalities of setting up a website, linking it to PayPal, doing lead pages and all the kind of stuff that the online guys gobble up. You would be somebody that would be able to walk them through to where you can then go, your business is established, it's in its formative stage, but you've got enough knowledge to what I've taught you to be able to take it further.
You got it. I mean, essentially, we are connecting the dots because in the online world, we suffer from shiny object syndrome. We're like, oh, this new tool is the thing that's going to be set me free, or this new strategy, or this new program, or this new this. And the reality is all of those are tools, right? And if we wanted to build a house, we can build a house with nails and a hammer, and we can do it, and it's going to take it forever. Or we could upgrade and use a drill and use screws and go a bit faster. And there is no right or wrong way. The hammer and the nails will get the job done. The screw guns and the drills and the screws will get the job done. It's just a new technology away. But at the end of the day, you still have to pick up the tool, put it in your hand, and use it to build the house. And the only way that you're going to build the house is either literally squeezing the trigger of the drill gun and pushing on it to get it to go into the wood, or to use the hammer and swing it. And you have to consistently, every day, day in, day out, put in your 8 hours of work, commit to doing the work to build your house. Nobody's going to build it for you. You're going to have to build your house.
But for what you're teaching them, once they've learnt it once, they've got enough of an idea to be able to replicate it. So if I ask somebody that builds a business that starts working to a point, and because of that success and that confidence that it breeds, they then think, I could go bigger on this. Would they then be able to do it themselves, or would they need to come back and request another series of tuition?
Yeah, it depends on where they're at, man. If they're like brand new newbies, it may take them like 6 months to really get a harness and feel comfortable with using the technology, right? Or to open up the idea or maybe they need the accountability. But ideally, yes, you are correct. Within 90 days, they have the basic frameworks to understand how to use optimized press with WordPress to build their stuff, to make their text changes, to add videos, to continue creating content without having to ever see me ever again, if they themselves are okay with continually to up-level their skill sets. Absolutely.
And what about if they wanted something done? For example, they're listening to this content now, they've already got an online presence, they've got to build a business, but they think, yeah, it'd be great to have video on it, but I've got no idea how to do. Would they be able to contact you as well?
They can, and it'd just be where they at. So like one of the video scripts, like one of the things me, I love shooting video. And so maybe it's just a simple conversation, and maybe we don't have to take them on as a client, as a coaching client, but rather than saying, yeah, here's a simple way to shoot video. Think of what is the problem you're solving, what is the possibility you're taking them to, what is your path, and then what's your call to action. So if that was an opt-in video where you said, hey, are you experiencing this, this, and this? That would be the problem. Would you like to get to here, here, and here, and here? Hi, my name is, and I help X get Y. And I've discovered the secret is this. hey, take this action. Like, that's all they need to know. And if they're like, well, can I create it, myself? I was like, sure, absolutely. If you have an iPhone, if you have an iPad, if you have a camera, look directly into the lens, you can create it. But if you don't want to take the time to learn how to edit it yourself, then I could, point them and say, go work with this person who can help you with your video, like Chase Turnbow or Eric Casas or somebody like that.
Right, let's take you back in time then, because it's fascinating. Listening to you talk, although we've already worked out that you are, in some sense, the world's laziest man and don't get up till the afternoon, but you are infused, you're passionate, you love what you're doing. But a lot of time in your life, that was totally the opposite view. You didn't like going to college, you didn't like what you was doing. Was I right in my introduction that it was because that environment was not conducive to your creativity?
Yeah, I think it was that. But at the end of the day, I felt like I was being forced to learn a bunch of stuff that didn't mean anything to me. Like I was learning biology. Why do I want to learn about biology? I'm not going to go be a doctor. Why am I having to learn? Why am I having to take a PE class? I'm healthy. I can go learn to lift and do health on my own. Why am I being forced to take this art history class when I'm not going to go, teach at a museum? That's the piece I didn't like it. The other piece I didn't like about it, and I'm surrounded by college students, and I hate well, that's such a strong word, but it's true. I don't like the college campus culture. I don't like college students. I didn't want to do what college students do. I just wanted to go out and produce. I wanted to get to work, and that's what I literally wanted to do. I wanted to go all in on. And so I didn't identify with that culture that I was in. Growing up, I always identified with those who are older than me. Some say, oh, you're this old soul, which, that's fine. If it is, it is. I like hanging out with people who are older than me, and that's just who I identify and bond with. That's who I like having conversations with. And so here I was in this complete culture, and I felt like the best analogy I can give is I felt like I was a freshman in high school and I'm sitting in elementary class. And you can only take so much of it before it's just absolutely annoying and a waste of time. And so I kind of came to this conclusion by my sophomore year in college, and I had to make a decision. It's like, well, do I, continue, quote unquote, investing in my education here and continue racking up student debt? Or do I pull the plug and waste 2 years of my life here? And so I decided to endure for another 2 years just to be done, since I started just to go ahead and finish. And then what I learned from that experience, if I could go all the way back in time again, is to say, what in the world is it that I want to experience? And then what skill sets do I need to pull that off? And then just go do that. If that means going to a tech school, perfect. If that meant hiring mentors and investing in different coaching programs, perfect. And at the time, I wanted to do, graphic design, and I thought special effects. So I wish I would have just gone to like a 2-year art school. So I wouldn't have had to waste what I feel like is wasting my time learning all of these liberal studies, which, in my opinion, they did not give me the skill sets to produce. It gave me the skill sets to produce a broad range of conversing on random topics. But at the end of the day, it did not increase my value as a human being, because we're in a day and age where people want results. And, my value as a producer in this new world is, can I get the results for people? And the more I can increase my value to do that, the more I'm worth. And that's the thing about college that really kind of ticked me off.
Well, that's a fundamental flaw with the education system. And to a man and a woman, we get the same comments over and over again, that the education system is built as a conveyor belt, and it basically pushes you through the system to come out with a qualification. And it's not an inspiring environment. I remember being bored stupid at school all the way through, because I wanted to do my own thing, and I didn't quite work out why I had to do it their way just because they was telling me. So I wasn't suitable for the education system. If I went back now, as you say, and fine-tuned what I wanted, because I've now got the experience of adulthood, and I go, yes, I know what I need. I'm going to go and learn that. I'm going to learn that. But it can't work the opposite way, can it? Because the kids don't know what they want until they know that they want it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is where it comes back to, the parents. the man, and I don't have a kid, so I feel like I'm speaking out of turn here. But so many times parents say, well, go to school and they're going to teach you, and it's more of this hands-off philosophy, at least it is here in the United States. And it would be the equivalent of handing your hard-earned money over to a financial advisor and just hoping they don't lose it all, just hoping and praying they don't lose it all, but yet not paying attention. Like, you're not going to get good results that way. I mean, it's okay to give your money to the financial advisor, but at the same time, we have to educate ourselves on what am I investing in, and having a proactive role and making sure that money's growing and adjusting and moving it as need be. And I think with our children, it's the same way. The parents have to take a proactive role. And I have friends of mine who did this idea of unschooling, where they did not go to school. I mean, they literally, their parents pulled them out of school in the 3rd grade and in the 1st grade, and they never went to a public school. And they didn't really do homeschooling. They tried it for about 3 weeks, and the kids hated it. So instead, they just facilitated the child's interest from a very young age. And so if the child was interested in birds, then the parents went out and bought binoculars and bird books, and they studied birds. And if they wanted to be a vet, then they started, at a young age. And we're talking about 9, 10, 11 years old. They're volunteering at the local veterinary office and at the animal hospitals and all of that. And then when they decided, well, I think I'd like to be a model, then the parents invested heavily into the child and took them to castings. And as a result, the child naturally said, this is what I like. This is what I feel like I'm called to do. And the child committed and went all in. And at the end of the day, when we're talking, years later now, my friend is, a very successful international model because she spent that time, and Malcolm Gladwell wrote the book Outliers, where you have to invest 10,000 hours to become kind of that expert or become great. If you want to become the Michael Jordan or LeBron James or the Pele or the Zinedine Zidane or the David Beckham, right? Like you have to invest the hours to be able to play at that level. And so by allowing their children to facilitate their interests at a young age, it allowed them to invest those 10,000 hours into their craft of choice. So they became really good high players in their industry. And that's what I think, moving forward, I hope, more and more parents will do, and they'll become very active and proactive in helping their kids from a young age facilitate their interests, facilitate their passion so they can figure out their purpose, and then they get the skill sets to pull that off.
I think that's very profound, and the tagline of our show is connecting our past to build our future. And one of the things we talk about time and time again is the fact that the things that we love doing as small children is the fundamental passions that we forget we like. And then as we go through adulthood, we get a job just because it pays the money, and then we end up doing a thing that we don't really like doing. Now, I created this word, and I think it's inspiration, and it's a cross between education but inspiration. So what they're doing, they are educating their children, but they're inspiring their children as well. And I think that's fundamentally where the education system is flawed. And that's why we all have our favourite teachers that we look back and go, that person was brilliant. And we realise it wasn't that they have taught us stuff that we remember remember how they made us feel. And that's a different ball game altogether. So go for it.
And I said, and as I look back, man, as I was a kid, what I loved doing was creating. And I think that's why I wake up every day loving my business so much. Is I'm helping, not only am I creating, like you're creating, man. You're creating these ridiculously amazing conversations and these podcasts with the crazy music and these hilarious intros. Like you're in your flow state of being creative, and it's very fun. It's very inspirational for you. And that's very much the way I am when it comes to creating email content and videos. Like, that's fun. But then I get to help other people tap into their creative genius as well. And, now looking back, I could see that's what I loved doing as a kid, was painting and drawing. And it's interesting to think that creativity in me led me really, honing that creativity led me to where I'm at today of just being uber creative.
It doesn't surprise me at all. You are episode 144, and we've had the same conversation every single time. And I almost want to get this show for, my daughter actually, who's 9 years old. She plays it to people and she says, this is my dad, listen to this. And she's had an awakening at certain points. And she said to me the other day, she said, I was listening to you the other day, and she listens to the same one. I think she's got it stored on a phone or whatever. And she said to me, I was thinking what I would like to be when I grow up. And I said, what would that be? And she said, it's something that lights me up inside. And I went, that's it. That is it. You don't know what it is at the moment, but when you find that thing, that is the thing that is going to be effortless to you. And that's going to be the thing that, funnily enough, you will provide more value to the world, and you will highly likely earn a lot more from it. Where we all go to Starbucks, we all go to Taco Bell, and we try to get those kind of jobs and whatever, you know, people are doing in the world. It's very rare that we go with our core passion, but the successful people have found it. They found it. It doesn't matter how long it takes, they find it. And when they find it, they know, and then they run with it. And that's exactly what you've done, isn't it?
Dude, absolutely. And at the end of the day, if we don't love what we're doing, there's no way that we're going to invest the 10,000 hours in it to become great at it. Like there's no way. It's you're going to hate your life. I mean, you're going to wake up one day, you know, if you're just like, well, I'm going to do this just for money, and I'm going to spend 10,000 hours trying to be, you know, again, trying to be great at this. At some point, you know, whether this is the 5,000, the 7,000, the 9,000 hour mark, you're just going to be like, oh, I've had it. I would rather shoot myself in the face than die than do this again. Like, there's no way that you're going to become great at it. And that's why, you know, the idea of the people who are great, the people who leave a legacy, these are the people who have identified just what they love to do. And then they go at it with everything they have because, like I said, they would rather die than not do that.
Right, let's play the first of our motivational speeches that we play on the show. And this is Jim Carrey, and he quite nicely says what you've just been saying. So this is Jim.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
I would like my kids to hear that every day. Every day I listen to that and I think to myself, he's nailed it. He's nailed it, but it's not a lesson that we are getting out to the masses early enough.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, like, what would happen? Like, you know, just to think for a moment, if we close our eyes here and think, like, what would our world be like if from the first day of kindergarten, children are hearing speeches of this nature? And that's carrying into first grade, into second grade, and third grade. And yes, we're indoctrinating our children. That's what we do in school anyway. We're indoctrinating them to say, you are awesome, you are amazing, go tackle life with everything you have. And there is no right or wrong answer. Just be you and be really good at whatever you do. Like, how cool would the world be if we were able to have children thinking that way from a young age?
Would you haven't got kids at the moment, although the population of 7 Points has gone up a lot recently. I was wondering if it's got anything to do, but I wasn't brave enough to ask. But you haven't got kids at the moment, or as far as you're aware. Would you do that kind of thing? Would you kind of play those motivational speeches, or would you allow them to find it on their own sort of path?
Dude, I would definitely play those, but I wouldn't have my children say, listen to this. It would be something, I'm living that path. I'm me as a human being and walking that path and showing them. You know, so my girlfriend and I, when we drive places right now, we listen to audiobooks. Yes, we do listen to music, but at times we do listen to different audiobooks, things that inspire us, things we want to learn. And so as I'm walking my talk, as I'm walking my beliefs, I'm showing my children or my potential children or those that I don't know about, right? I'm showing them a new possibility. Like here's my analogy. Growing up, my dad owned a construction company, still does, by the way. You know, they build big government projects. And I was never told a day in my life, son, work hard. You know, I was told, well, I kind of was. I was told the key to success is work hard, save a lot. The key to success is low debt. I try to live that way as much as possible. So I was told that. But at the end of the day, I got to go to work with my dad. I got to see him work. I got to see my grandfather work and my uncles work. I got to see what it means to work hard. And so that's why when it comes to today, I have a ridiculous work ethic. I can produce like nobody else because I know how to be focused and what it means to work hard, and not mess around or waste time. And I see my cousins on the other spectrum where they were told to work hard, to go get a job, and they do, but yet they weren't able to see it because their families, their moms, dads worked in a corporate job, so they don't have the reference of what it means to work hard. And so we can preach all day long, but unless we have a model to follow, it's going to fall on deaf ears, because if they can see the work ethic, then they can say, oh, that's how I need to implement. That's how I need to work. And so for me, that I think that's, coming back to the question, that's what I'd want to do with my children is I just want to model that. And if I can model it, consistently model that, that's what's going to set the pace for them regardless of what my words that come out of my mouth. Because at the end of the day, my actions are going to speak way louder than my words.
So you're walking the walk, talking the talk, and they will naturally think that's the way to do it because dad is doing it.
Yes, exactly.
The interesting thing with that, though, is the fact that so many people that I speak to see the same thing time and time again, and they go into employment because their mum and dads were in that kind of employment. And I did a similar thing back in the day. I went into an office work. I never really wanted to go into an office work, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I just naturally migrated into it. But they get to a point that they know it's the wrong path, but they're still unwilling to do anything about it. And I say to people, I saw a chap recently who I grew up with, and I said to him, how's work then? He went, well, it's a job. And I went, well, why can't you do something? He said, it's all right for you. And I went, no, it's not. It's all right for everyone. And my belief now, AJ, is not the fact that we're all going, be entrepreneurs, punch your boss in the face, leap of faith and all that.
Right.
But I do believe that everyone can be happy. And if you're in a job that is just crappy and you hate it, there's other jobs out there. And it may not be the perfect one, the next one you get. It may not be the perfect one after that. But you will find a better one, and you don't actually have to put up with a rubbish boss and a rubbish environment. And if you do want to take a leap of faith and create it yourself, you're now in the perfect position with the power of the internet and the ability to connect with amazing people like yourself online and across the globe. But it's not like generations back where you would go and do work because it was in the vicinity of where you grew up. Because we've got the ability now to really create an income and a life across the world.
Dude, I totally agree with you. And see, I don't think everybody's cut out for entrepreneurship, and I don't think everybody's called to be an entrepreneur. And to be quite frankly, as an entrepreneur, I'm really glad people want jobs. There's certain tasks I don't want to do, and I'm very happy to pay people to do that, and I'm very grateful that they enjoy doing that work. Right. So my message to those people who don't like their job, it's like, cool. All right. Understand that you're not a victim. You're in control of your life, and nothing changes and nothing changes. If there's something you want to experience, like you said, what other employer out there would employ you? And if you're like, oh, well, I'm not qualified enough to go, work at this company. Cool. That's fine. That's the starting point. How can you level up your skill sets to then become qualified, and how can you level up your mindset to grow your confidence and your certainty levels to then be able to walk into that office of whoever you would like to work for and say, you know what, I see I could produce this for you, and I guarantee you I can make you more money because I can do this, and in fact, I'm willing to come in and work for you for the next 14 days for free to prove to you that I can make you more money. Like a person that has that type of confidence and certainty, they can get any job they want at any corporation they want, in my opinion. But it all comes back to us being responsible for the lives that we want to experience and taking responsibility to put a game plan in place and a strategy in place to pull it off.
Now, the hard thing that you're talking about, and I agree with you totally, you're not getting an opposite view from me in any shape or form. But thinking from the listener's point of view, it's difficult to change gears. if they've been in a situation where they're comfortable and they're going to the same office and they know the commute and they know the hours, it is difficult to change gear and change direction. Do you have any tips that you would suggest that you think this is the way to actually break free, only if you want to break free?
Yeah, one of the things, I read in Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, and he talked about the pain-pleasure principle. And I use this in my own life because there was a time, when I was a musician and I grew up thinking, men don't cry, they no really emotional attachment. So I became very callous, not in a mean way, but like I just couldn't really resonate with people. I couldn't allow myself to be empathetic with people. Everything was just always fine and dandy to me. And so I had to come to this place of where I pushed everybody. I mean, my actions had pushed everybody I cared about away from me, because if I said thank you, they knew it wasn't necessarily sincere. It was just a word that came out of my mouth. Or if I said, how can I help you? They knew it wasn't sincere. It was just words that came out of my mouth, rather than being empathetic and being aware and seeing how I could tune into them, how I could just open up and serve them, etc. And so I had to come to a place that said, okay, if I continue doing this and being this way, it's a choice. I can do that. But if I do, then I need to paint this negative experience. And I need to equate so much pain in this that it's going to push me over the edge to shift. And so I got down a piece of paper and I wrote out, okay, if I continue this action, then I'm going to lose my family. I'm never going to have a girlfriend or a spouse. I'm never going to have a family. I'm going to be alone and I'm going to be miserable, and I'm going to have to eat soup with a cat. Like it would just, life would be this terrible existence. And on the other hand, I wrote down this paragraph of what it would mean if I was able to shift. And I painted this picture of these amazing experiences, like connecting with the girl of my dreams and being able to be present and with people, and everybody, loves me and we love each other and we're doing good. And so then I had enough pain to push me into that new reality. And I started finding the solutions to then kind of recondition my neural pathways to allow myself to be more present, allow myself to be more transparent, allow myself to be more vulnerable, and ultimately being more empathetic with people. So I think for those listening today, if you're okay where you're at, that's fine. Just continue. But if you're complaining every day of just, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, how can you harness, even if you have to fabricate this, by the way, how can you harness enough pain to push you over the edge where you're willing to go get that new experience that you want to have?
That's a good point, isn't it? How do you fabricate that? So how do you? So
like I said, it comes back, dude, I did it in my journal, man. I literally wrote this experience out. That's how I did it. And then I literally allowed myself to feel the pain of that negative situation. Another way that you could do it is think through, how could you place yourself in those shoes? So for example, let's say if I was a smoker and I'm complacent with smoking, but yet I have this burning desire within me that says I want to quit smoking, but yet I'm complacent saying, well, I'm okay with it, I really would like to. How can you leverage and harness a painful experience? Well, the way to do it is go to your nearest hospital, walk through the emphysema wing of the hospital, and watch all these people who are sitting there dying because they've smoked enough cigarettes where their lungs are black. And the reality is, if you continue smoking, you're going to end up just like them. And if that should be like a tangible reality where you could say, there's no way in hell I want to end up like these guys or these ladies or these men or women, I am going to stop smoking, period. And that gives you enough painful reality to push you over the edge to stop smoking.
So are we talking really about visualization, which is one of those things, that the two things that come out in conversations time and time again is the ability that successful people have, and they crave this time to meditate and actually allow them time to reflect on what they need to do and let their mind go off of what they're doing. And the other thing they seem to tell me all the time is that they will have vision boards and they will have things that they look at on a daily basis and they will focus in on that. Is this really what we're talking about for the newbies out there, or the people who are in a situation that they don't like, that they really got to start focusing on what they do want and not just a passing moment in the shower, but really sort of like put their life together so that it's surrounding them all the time and they're almost believing it's there before it is?
Absolutely. And I think it's different for different people. Like, I think a vision board is great. You know, I have them. In fact, I haven't really created one for this year, but I have several images and stuff that I do look at. And I remember growing up as a kid, like I played soccer at a very high competitive level, or football if we're here in the UK or anywhere else in the world, right? And so I played, you know, football at this high level. And I remember as a kid having the soccer ball and playing out in our yard, and it would just be me, man, me and the ball, and visualizing me playing in these championship games and me playing and doing these moves and psyching people out and scoring these goals or passing, yet all I'm doing is passing to the tree or kicking the ball against the fence or whatever. But I'm in my mind, just like as a child, you know, imagining dragon castles and dragons or cowboys and Indians. I'm visualizing that experience. And I remember, and I didn't realize it again till looking back and kind of connecting the dots here. When I was a musician, it was the same way. When I would rehearse, during rehearsal, you know, I visualized the audience, I visualized the experience, I visualized my movements. When I wasn't in rehearsal, I remember visualizing that experience in my, you know, in my mind or in front of the mirror. Or I would be driving down the road and be thinking about me on that stage, and I literally could feel that experience in my body. I mean, it would give me shivers, you know, of thinking of that, you know, when I was doing that. And even bringing that to current day, like thinking about being on shows like this and inspiring people, or being on different stages and speaking in different events, like that stuff that gets me pumped up, right? And so I think for those listening, that's a piece of it, is putting yourself in the future and truly allowing yourself to experience, and not to get so woo-woo, but in our minds and our bodies, they don't know the difference between the future or if we're having that experience right now. And we can go read about all these scientific studies about all of that. But at the same time, we can visualize all we want. And until we put some type of plan in place where we know the first step we need to take to create that reality, we have to then take that step. And if there is a block between, you know, Stephen Pressfield calls this the idea of resistance. And he said that we all have two lives, the ones we live and the life within that's unlived, the unlived life within that's within us. And the difference, the thing that's separating the two lives, the life without and the life within us, the unlived life within us, is resistance. So if we're meeting this resistance, we have to have something that's going to come and kick us kind of in the butt. And usually it's a painful experience. And I think that's why so many inspirational thought leaders, inspirational figures, so many people who are doing so many great things, they have these traumatic experiences. And Walt Disney said sometimes all we need is in life is a good swift kick in the teeth. And once we have those experiences, for many of us, that's the experience that pushes us into beyond the resistance of taking that first step. I know I definitely had that experience. But for those of us who don't want to go through that painful reality, we have to fabricate it somehow, whether that's through a journal or whether that's going to some physical place where we can experience enough pain to push us into this new pleasurable reality.
So was your career, your music career ending, was that your kick in the teeth, or was it something? Because I hear this a lot as well. What people who have this dream of being a touring musician and obviously playing Madison Square Garden, the new Bon Jovi and all that kind of stuff. And they sort of say when it finished, they're kind of relieved because it was the touring, it was the rubbish hotels, it was the bad diet, it was all those kind of things. Was that similar to you, or was it a kick in the teeth that it did end?
That was a piece of it. And so the whole kick in the teeth happened between October of 2009 and March of 2010. And in that 6-month window, I had broken up with the girl I had spent 4 years of my life with. We decided to just can the band and end everything, you know, of that 10-year music career. I ended up dating one of my best friends. And then after us dating for 6 months, she said, you know, you have to leave. And before I moved in with her and her family at the time, I sold all of my stuff. Also during that time, my parents got a divorce after 25 years of marriage, and then told me on my birthday. My mom then, shortly after the divorce, fell from a ladder 8 foot and shattered vertebrae in her back. And we had to go get rods, like, and some, you know, super crazy surgery. And so I ended up losing everything but my health. I mean, I didn't have my truck wasn't working at the time. I didn't have a job. I mean, I was trying to do this internet thing, but I wasn't making any money. In fact, I was doing construction, building a movie theater, and we just finished that job, I was just a contractor. So that went away. So I had no job, no money, no car, nowhere to live. My parents is gone. My identity as a musician's gone. Like everything I knew about my life was gone. That was the kick in the teeth where I said, okay, what in the world is my purpose for living? I don't know. I literally, there were days when I just wanted to shoot myself. Now I never got near doing that, but the thought was definitely on my shoulder. The light and the dark. The darkness within me was like, why, driving down the road, and it's like, why don't you just not make the turn? Why don't we just keep driving straight and roll this borrowed car that we're driving right now, right? And then I had to say, no, I'm here for a bigger purpose. So let me figure out what in the world this purpose is. And I had to dig deep. And this is where I thankfully picked up Awaken the Giant Within, as recommended by a good friend of mine. And I implemented everything in the book. And I said, okay, I can ask these disempowering questions and say, why me, poor me. And if I do, I'm going to get disempowering answers, because we know that if we ask, we will find. If we knock on the door shall be open. So if I'm knocking on bad doors, I'm going to get bad answers. If I'm asking bad questions, I'm going to get bad answers. So how can I consciously ask good questions from this space, even though I'm in an immense amount of pain? How can I consciously ask myself, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? What is my purpose for living? What is my purpose for living? And after asking and asking and asking and asking, I finally started to see it. And the voice came through me and said, to inspire millions. I'm like, that's great. To inspire millions to do what? Like, what do you want me to do here? And it's like, well, to inspire millions to produce passion. I'm like, well, how do I do that? And it's like, well, why don't you figure out how to use the internet to get your message out to the world? And then if you can do that, then slowly you can start liberating others. And as I continue taking step after step after step after step, here we are 5 years later, where that's what I'm doing. The vision that I had in 2009 or early in 2010, after that all fell apart, it's been a 5-year journey, a 5-year culmination of just step by step by step by step of me continually to level up my mindset, to continually level up my skill sets, to then have the experience that I'm having today. So that was what, my swift kick in the teeth with, which I am thankful every single day for, because without that experience, there's no way in hell I'd be who I am today.
I asked Michael O'Neill, the host of the Solopreneur Hour, he was on the show, the 100th episode, and he had a similar situation where he basically got to the point of having $14 and nothing else. He'd got to rock bottom. And I said to him, is it easier to go forward when you've hit rock bottom? And he said, absolutely. Absolutely. He wouldn't have it any other way. Do you feel that because you got to such a low point that, in a simplistic way, the only way was up?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And here's my belief. I believe all of us are called to do something in life. And this calling comes through us in a very gentle whisper. And it's kind of like a small, just kind of gut feeling. And if we don't listen to it, then we experience things in life that's like a gently tap on the shoulder. And if we continue to ignore it, then finally somebody picks up a 2x4 and hits you across the head. And then if you ignore that, then you get hit by a bus. Eventually, you listen. or you die. That's kind of the only two options that you have. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, after you get hit by the bus, you're at rock bottom. The only way you got to go is up. It has your attention.
Because I never hit rock bottom. I just hit a kind of unpleasant part of my life. And exactly. Now I'm doing this. I kind of think, wow, I should have been doing this years ago. I should have been doing this. I should have been there waiting for iTunes to open its door. Because it just feels so natural. It's like my previous life didn't really occur somehow. I look back on it and I go and meet these sort of people I used to work with, have a beer every now and again, and I can't remember what I did. And it's amazing. It was only like a year ago, but they asked me certain things, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes people come up to me, I can't even remember their name. It's like my last life has kind of blanked out somewhat. It's amazing that when you find your thing, your focus is totally switched to being only on that thing. And once you do that and the shiny syndrome goes and you realize that it's your path, then your energy level's better, your concentration's better, the amount that you can produce is better. You know, I do a daily show and I do an hour conversation every single day.
Yeah.
And people have said to me, how do you do that? And I kind of think, it's not that hard. You get a bit of structure and you have conversations that you really want to have. End of story.
Absolutely. I was going to say, you're that perfect example of of being tapped on the shoulder and listening. Like, it didn't take you getting hit by a bus or getting hit with a 2x4, and all this is metaphorical, by the way, to then go to what you felt really in your gut, what you felt guided to do. And you're just that perfect example of you don't have to experience immense amounts of pain. Just listen. And whatever that voice, whatever that gut feeling is telling you to do, and if it's calling you to be something good, go with everything that you have.
And that's possibly why the successful people talk about meditation. Because when people started talking to me about it, I kind of thought, oh, it's that business when you sit cross-legged and you try to float 3 feet off the floor. And now I kind of think, no, it's not. It's just closing all the distractions, closing down your Facebook, closing down your email, and allowing your mind actually to ask good questions. And I think,
absolutely, I
think that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I remember I hired a mentor of mine. Her name was Robin Lee Vela, and she wrote this book called Silent Voices of the Soul is what it's called. You can find it on Amazon. Great book. Real short, easy read. I mean, you can read it just a couple days using the bathroom. I mean, it's a great book. Changed my perception of a lot of things. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she was like, "Well, you need to meditate." I'm like, Robin, my brain won't shut off. Like, I'm just like, I'm this little rabid monkey. Like, I just can't. She's like, it's okay. She's like, not everybody's created to sit there in lotus pose. She said, for me, I get my messages, my downloads, my quiet time is cleaning the shower or mopping the floor or doing housework. She said, for you, maybe it's running. Maybe it's when you're taking a shower. She said, everybody gets spoken to in different ways. All you need to do is listen. Find that thing where, like you said, man, like find that time where you can quiet your mind, whether that's going on a walk, whether that's going on a run, maybe it's doing a triathlon, maybe it is sitting in lotus pose, like whatever it is that you need to do to be able to quiet your mind, where you're open to listening and receiving, dude, magic transpires.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Disconnect yourself from everything else. And I'm going to play the words now of Steve Jobs, because he was somebody that was quite big on disconnecting and really allowing his mind to wander. And obviously he created magic in the world, and he's left us with magic. And this statement that he's left is so powerful in many, many ways. So I'm going to play the words of Steve Jobs, and then I'm going to ask your opinion on it. This is Steve.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
I actually really stopped to listen to that. I do so many shows that sometimes I'm clicking buttons while he's talking. I stopped and listened to that, and he's bang on, isn't he?
Oh, dude, spot on. I mean, this idea that the life that I'm living now in 2009, there's no possible way I would have known, on this day, I don't even remember what day it is, September 4th, 2014, that I would be sitting here talking to David Ralph, who's in the UK, hanging out in his garden, petting his favorite cat, while I'm here on 43 acres, Like, there's no way. And it goes perfect to what Steve said. Like, you just have to trust that those dots are going to connect as you continually just put your best foot forward, and then your next best foot forward, and your next best foot forward, and then 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, you're able to look back and see the epic creation that you're now living.
Well, where's your vision for the next sort of 3 or 4 years? Because I've seen you fly in front of me so many times with Nick Unsworth, who does Life on Fire, and you've got a sort of program going, the two of your smiley faces all the time. And I thought, this is good, because what you're doing, you're taking somebody else's audience and your audience and combining a powerful package for ultimate effect. Is that sort of collaboration what interests you now?
Man, what's really interesting me right now is, I have a new business partner, Andy Zitzman, of the Game Time movement. And like, what interests me now is like having it all. Like, and I'm still trying to figure this out myself, by the way. So I'm not qualified in my experience to teach this. But 5 years from now, this is just kind of where I'd like to head, is helping entrepreneurs figure out, how do we have a booming business? How can we have this relationship with our significant other that's like on fire? How do we have this connection to source where we're able to tap in and where we can lead? And how do we have this body that we have amazing energy levels that we feel confident in? Like, how do we have everything rather than just focusing on business or just focusing on a relationship? How do we have it all? Like, what's the art and science to really pulling that off? And so I'm really inspired right now, and I'm trying and experimenting with things in my current life of stepping up my game in life and in business. And then eventually, 5 years from now, I want to be able to create this community called Game Changers, where we're going to be changing the world with our businesses. We're changing the world with our families. We're changing the world through our bodies. Man, we're deeply connected to source, and we're liberating leaders. 5 years from now, that's where I see myself going and really creating.
Does it frighten you when you look at that, and what you're saying sounds amazing, but for so many people that the thought of doing something amazing suddenly becomes too big for them to deal with? And I was speaking to a gentleman this morning, and he's got this global identity that he's creating, and I said to him, this is like a world movement you're creating. And he said, yeah, it's too big for me, but somebody's got to start it. Do you feel like that, or do you feel that everything that you aim for is in your grasp already?
I remember a quote from Michael Bernard Beckwith, and he says, if you can see it within them, it is within you. And so as I look at people who inspire me, man, like I look at Steve, and not just because what he created Apple, that doesn't really, I mean, it's cool, but that doesn't inspire me. What inspires me is Steve's ability to innovate and to lead. I mean, to lead a group of people to pull off something magnificent. That's inspiring. As I look at people like Brendan Burchard, who are affecting millions of people with their message, and they're using technology to create a sustainable business year in and year out, not just 1 year or 2 year, but year in, year out, to sustainable growth and reaching people and inspiring people. That inspires me. As looking at Nick and seeing him, inspire people to get fired up and creating business, that inspires me. Being in experiences with you where you have this show that people are tuning into from all over the world, and they're having those aha moments. That inspires me. And so that quote always like burns deep in my soul, knowing that there's no way that I would not be able to pull it off, because I see it within you guys. Like, it wouldn't be fair, like, if the creator was like, hey, you see all this cool stuff? Yeah, you can't do that. Like, that life would suck, right? Like, it would not be fun. It wouldn't be fair. And so by me being able to just be conscious of, man, I'm seeing you guys do so much magnificent work, then I'm capable of doing the same if I'm willing to be committed. So it doesn't necessarily scare me. It really gets me fired up. And I have to ask myself, dude, are you committed to pulling this off? Because there's a lot that has to happen. Are you willing to go on this journey and embrace the journey? And is my girlfriend, is she willing to embrace the journey with me as we push on and push forward?
I'm inspired by your content, and I'm sure that you are going to achieve it, and I want you to achieve it. And anything that I can do to help you achieve that, you only have to ask, mate.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. Hey, and it goes both ways. The road definitely travels both ways here, my friend.
Well, let's send you on another road now, because this is the end of the show. I don't want to stop this show, but this is the part that we call the sermon on the mic. And I send you back in time like a young Marty McFly to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time and speak to the young AJ, what age would you choose and what advice would you give? Well, we're going to find out, because you're up, and this is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with The best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
Yo, AJ, here's the deal, man. Don't get solely focused on hitting home runs and grand slams. If you do, you're going to strike out most of the time, and you're going to have a life of insane ups and insane downs. Instead, my friend, focus on hitting singles every single day. And I know this sounds boring, but I assure you, you'll win the game, and winning consistently day in and day out is a hell of a lot easier and a lot more fun. Embrace the journey. Life is not a sprint, but a marathon. The hare always wins the race. Steady, consistent action is everything. Excitement is fun at first, but I tell you, it wears off fast. So in your decision-making process, weigh your options. Ask yourself, what are you willing to be committed to? Commitment is what it takes to be successful and have a thriving business. Anyone can get lucky and score the winning goal once in a while, but it's the players who continually focus on practicing the basics and leveling up their mindsets and their skill sets. Those are the players who leave the legacy. They have a ruthless commitment to being focused for years at a time, and this is what makes them great, and this is why people are willing to pay them so much. It's because they bring immense amounts of value to their team, and the same is true in business and in life. So my question to you is, what are you willing to focus on and do for the next 10 years of your life? Make sure your sole focus is not just on crushing business, though, because if you do, you're going to sacrifice everything. I mean, your health, your friends, your family, and your spiritual connection will die. Don't let this happen, man, because life is not worth experiencing without these. Instead, focus on how can you have it all. Learn to invest in it all, man. Like, create the game plan and the strategy to have everything, and be ruthlessly committed to your girlfriend or your spouse or your family and your friends and your body and your spirit and your business. And yes, there's going to be games and there's going to be battles you're going to lose. But learn to shift your mindset to focus on what can you learn from the experience, and push on to play the game again tomorrow. Go all in each and every day in every area of your life. If you focus only on moving the needle in one single area of your life, you're going to learn that you're going to leave the others behind, only to end up putting the area of focus down to go rescue the others who are burning in the fire behind you. And this is going to leave your mental capacity drained, and ultimately you're going to feel like this hamster who's running on this endless wheel. Life isn't hard, man, but it's not easy either. Yet it's simple. Return to the basics of life. Work hard, spend below your means, save some, and invest the difference. Take your loved ones out on a weekly date night, call your friends and your family, and ultimately live an awesome life. You, my friend, are created for greatness, as all humans are. Your ruthless commitment to having it all will be the thing to feeling happy. At the end of the day, that's all you really want anyway. I mean, no external approval from your father or your mother or your grandfather or anyone else is going to make you happy. No amount of money is going to make you happy. All of this, it's just an illusion to keep you stuck in a vicious cycle of wanting more and more. True happiness is found in truly appreciating what you have. People will see you as a successful person if you're confident and happy. And this state of mind can never be bought. And honestly, my friend, it's a simple choice. You don't have to accomplish anything to then someday, one day, then have it. You can have it all right now. All you must do is choose. I love you. You got this. Now freaking go get it.
Loved that, AJ. And
thanks, man.
The thing at the beginning really was something that I wanted to re-emphasize. Don't go hitting home runs, just go for singles, because singles, that's progress, isn't it? That's steady progress. And if you try to just swing, you're just going to exhaust yourself. So that's the trouble that we all battle with, the overnight success syndrome, we don't see those singles that has made that home run suddenly become visible to us.
Dude, absolutely. I mean, the huge players in the game of life, the huge players in the game of business, I mean, they're the ones who are essentially, you know, their success is like an iceberg, man. I mean, they're underwater just hitting a single, hitting a single, hitting a single, hitting a single. And before you know it, the bases are loaded. They hit another single, they score a run. Bases are loaded again, they hit another single, then, you know, another run is scored. And before you know it, then everybody's seeing the mountain above the water. And they're like, oh my gosh, you were great. You're amazing. I want to do that. Let me pay you to do it instantaneously. But the truth is, just get committed to hitting singles every day. And if you do it, then you can replicate the success. Yet it may take you 5, 7, or 10 years, but you can do it.
Absolutely. AJ, how can our audience connect with you, sir?
Man, the best way is go to AJAmyx, AMYX.com, or hit me up on Twitter. It's just at AJAmyx.com, Facebook at AJ or /AJAmyx.com. Just across the board, man. Just first and last name's best way to contact me.
Well, we will have all the links on the show notes, and thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts is the best way to build our futures. AJ, thank you so much.
I'm honored, brother. Thank you so much, David.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.